All right, welcome to this workshop or lecture, if you want. And it seems that the audio is fine now. I'm sorry about the 15-minute delay. Sometimes the technical problems occur, but hopefully it will be fine from now on. First and foremost, let me tell you at the beginning that this is not a regular lecture. So whenever you feel like asking something or commenting something, please do so whenever I speak, because I want to have it very interactive. I will tell you about Iceland, about shooting on Iceland, filming on Iceland. So if you have any questions, please feel free to do so. Feel free to ask. You may either just ask straight away or raise your hand if you want to be more subtle. So, Iceland is a country that everyone wants to see, but not everyone has had a chance already. How many of you have already been to Iceland? And how many of you would like to go? Okay, I can see. Great. I think the majority of people would like to go because Iceland is not a country, it's an island in itself because it is sort of, it offers a lot of opportunities that you can see. There are active volcanoes, waterfalls, beautiful coastline. The country is really breathtaking, but on the other hand, it's not your typical holiday destination. It's cold, it's expensive, the beer's not good, and I can confirm that. So why would you want to go there if you do not have your regular things that you expect on your holiday? Well, it's worth going there because it's a beautiful country. As a photographer, I used to dream about going to Iceland, making beautiful pictures that perhaps could also be acknowledged and rewarded in some competition, and maybe to take pictures of some beautiful but extreme uh, things. And so I started saving. I was working at Tesco's, and 7 years ago, I saved enough to go to Iceland for the first time. I think it was 2018, 2019, so something like 7 years ago. And I really had my first low cost holiday. We rented Duster car, 4x4, so a four-wheel drive, and there were four of us actually sleeping in the car for a week because we didn't want to, spend money on accommodation. So you can imagine that it wasn't very good. It wasn't very comfortable, but it was worth it, and it has been worth it every time I went there since then. I now organize expeditions for clients, for photographers regularly, and I really fell in love with Iceland ever since because it's really a different country, a country in itself. Today, I'm not going to tell you about a particular trip, but I want to show you what Iceland is like. Now, Iceland really is extreme when it comes to weather and the living conditions, but it's beautiful. And since I am a landscape photographer, I focus on taking pictures of landscape. So we will talk about the nature, about the landscape. And after this workshop or lecture, if you want, you should be able to, and hopefully we can do it and we can be on the first name terms. So after this lecture, you should be able to know what is worth seeing in Iceland, what is Iceland about, but also what it means to go and shoot in Iceland. So, first and foremost, let us locate Iceland. It's a small country, island country, located at the north, and it's about twice the size of Slovakia, and it's located next to Greenland, very close to the polar circle. So one would expect that there should be an extreme winter, extreme cold, some minus 30, minus 40 degrees Celsius, but that's not true. And many people ask why. Well, it's because of the Gulf uh, Gulf Stream that heats up the atmosphere and the water. So in March, you would have -2 or -3 degrees centigrade. So nothing bad. Actually, our winters here in Slovakia can be more severe and colder than in Iceland. Now, because it's located in the north, it's a great place to observe northern lights. And we can talk and we will talk about the reasons why it is so. But basically, the aurora or northern lights, as we call them in English, um, is a phenomenon where we can see the particles from the sun uh, falling into our atmosphere at that place and being reflected. And that's why we see that northern light. And in general, Iceland is called the land of fire and ice. And these are the elements that we are going to focus on during our meeting today. The first element I want to talk about is fire. And you may ask, why fire? Well, if you hear Iceland, many of us imagine an active volcano with molten lava, everyone running. And really, this year, at present, we have basically an eruption of an active volcano every year. And now it's getting even more dangerous because the volcanoes are erupting close to the or near the inhabited areas. But if you're a photographer, you know what I'm talking about. When I say we as photographers and filmmakers are not really so afraid because we want to go closer to the volcanoes because we want to have a nice footage or the nice picture. And this is what I am trying to do as well. What's also interesting is when we're talking about volcanoes is that the Icelanders are living next to the tectonic plates and the cracks in them. So living here is not very easy for the locals, and they might have gotten used to it. They're quite cool and phlegmatic about it. However, living here really is a challenge because you can just imagine having a house somewhere in a village, and the scientists come up with prediction that in 5 years' time, this area is not going to will not exist anymore. So you don't really you grow accustomed to the idea. You don't really plan what to plant in your garden, but the people here have gotten used to this idea, so they find it quite okay, and they count on being relocated. Now, this area around the Reykjavik is quite interesting because, especially since 2021, this is the area where we've seen the eruption of the volcano. And this is because we have the break line of the tectonic plates located close to Reykjavik, the capital of Iceland. And this is a bit of a problem because obviously it's not ideal to have volcanoes erupting close to your capital. But Icelanders are ready even for this. And in the couple of past years, when we traveled to Iceland with friends, with photographers, we saw that the people of Iceland can really, get together, mobilize themselves. And when there is an eruption close to the city, close to Reykjavik, like we had the situation that they had a couple of years ago, when you could actually see the molten lava erupting from the city, they are capable of quickly building a stone wall around the city that prevents the lava from getting into the city. So it's all hands on deck, and they built the wall, and they even have the fire engines there with water pumps, and they're cooling down the lava when to stop it from coming into the city. And it requires a lot of strength, a lot of effort. And if you have, or when you have volcanoes erupting twice a year, it really takes a lot. But they're managing. They have been so far. Since 2021, I flew to Iceland for I think about 7 times to shoot the volcanoes and their destruction power, but also their beauty. And I really concentrated on the beauty that they've created rather than destroyed. Because you can just imagine a valley where you have a crater with erupting molten lava, and suddenly this valley becomes a mountain because the sheer volume of lava means that the valley is filled with it, with it, and the landscape changes. And this is what I wanted to capture uh, through my lens, through the lens of my camera. The new landscape, the new natural phenomenons being born. You can really see the reshaping of the landscape, which was fascinating for me. And this is why I decided to, shoot the volcano. And I prepared a short 2-minute video for you, showing you what it looks like when there is an eruption of a volcano and what it looks like when you are filming it or shooting it. All right. Uh, the videos were prepared in English because they were originally intended for another event, but I wanted to use them here. I believe you understood. There were just a couple of words anyway. So, as you could see, it's not easy to shoot or take pictures of volcanoes. It is difficult, but beautiful at the same time. And now let's move on to the next slide. Try and imagine that you come to a spot where you have constant earthquakes, so the ground is shaking beneath your feet. There's a lot of poisonous gases. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. There is a strong wind, and you need to spend a couple of days there and shoot. It's not easy, but we managed. And there were some funny situations arising uh, during that time, because this is a picture where you can see me and a friend of mine taking pictures of the volcanoes. This was one of the first moments when we actually have gotten to the lava. And what you can see, if you can see it on my face, it's not a gas mask, but it's basically just the regular mask from Tesco. So it's like a placebo effect. When we flew to Iceland back in 2021, it was during the corona pandemic. It was difficult to travel, but somehow we've managed to get there because I really wanted to, go shoot um, the volcanoes. So we flew in to Iceland. We spent a week in quarantine. We trekked for 5 hours, and then we came to the spot, and suddenly we realized there was a poisonous gas there, and we didn't know what to do. So we were just thinking what we could use, and we used the regular face mask. It didn't really help, and our lungs really, really hurt, but we're still here. And I believe some of you will join us in March when we travel to Iceland, and it's quite possible we will get close to the active volcano because there should be an eruption in a couple of days, and you will have the first-hand experience there. And I don't want to kill you, don't worry. It's a great experience, nonetheless. Now, this is where I've taken one of the most successful pictures I've ever taken, and I even called it the Born of Fire. And this is the picture that has won numerous competitions. It was exhibited all over the world, and it was recognized and mentioned by many important magazines, which made me happy. But it was not about this. The shooting, when you come to a place like this, is about, and mainly about, your feeling of um, being of tininess, of being tiny. Because if you stand next to a volcano, you just feel small and insignificant, like an ant sitting next or standing next to the crater and the erupting lava. Because, for example, the piece of lava that you can see is about the size of a lorry truck, and you can't really even imagine how big it is in real life. And if you're standing there, you smell the gas, you feel the earth shaking beneath your feet, you hear the roar of the volcano, and you feel very small. And that's why I fell in love with Iceland and its volcanoes, because since the very first moment when I went there in 2021, I actually travel to Iceland every year to shoot or film volcanoes, but I became sort of addicted to this feeling of being small. And this is what Iceland makes to you. Over the years, I've managed to take a number of pictures that you could see in my video as well. And for example, this one that I'm showing to you now is the picture taken during the latest eruption at the end of the last year. And it was by chance that I managed to shoot it because we were in Iceland with our clients. We told them how to shoot these beautiful areas, and then there was an eruption, and I was just thinking how to do that. Back in 2021, it was easy to go there because the Icelanders. There were people looking like firefighters who were basically just guarding the areas. And back in 2021, they would say, if you want to die, go. Your life, your decision. But later on, more people started, coming to the active volcanoes, and sometimes they did really silly things, like they approached it too close, they breathed in, or they were breathing in the gases. So in 2021, there was a ban on tourists coming to the volcanoes, and that was a problem for me, obviously, as a photographer. So I asked my friend in Slovakia, who is the boss of one photographers association, and I asked him if he could give me some sort of um, passes or press pass that would allow me to go there. And he did so, and I could go to the volcanoes ever since. And this has helped me in 2024, so last year, because thanks to the press pass, they let us go close near the volcano together with our clients, and we could take pictures there. But this particular volcano was not as eventful as the one I filmed in 2021 because that volcano erupted close to the inhabited areas. And when we went there with our clients, this is what it looked like. This is actually the main road leading to a small city, a small town, Grindavik, located close to Reykjavik. I remember this city from back in 2019. It was very peaceful. There were some Slovaks living there. It was a fishing or fisherman's town. But last year, when we saw the city, the town, it was a ghost town. Many houses were flooded with lava, with molten lava. People had to leave. And so on one hand, we admired the beauty of the volcano, and on the other hand, we had to respect the dignity of the people who had been living there and who had lost their lives. Luckily, there were no casualties because, Icelanders are very good in forecasting the eruptions, but simply these people had to move out. So the volcanoes are beautiful, but this is a reminder, reminding us that they can be very dangerous and bring a lot of damage in Iceland. And now the question for you coming with us this March to Iceland, there is a question that we need to brace for. How should we survive if there is an eruption? Well, the first principle, the first rule is do not wear just a face mask, regular face mask from the Tesco's, but we will wear something like this. But don't worry about this because if there is an eruption, we can buy this in Reykjavik in a shop. And this is really highly recommended because I remember when I was only wearing the regular face mask, the woolen face mask, and I remember that it was really difficult and painful. You feel like when you're really sick. Also, another rule is if you are using drone to take pictures, you have to think of one other thing. It's hot above the volcanoes or close to the volcanoes. And when I say hot, I mean really hot. Over the years, when we went to shoot volcanoes, it has become even almost like, a tragicomic event when every morning we held a minute of silence for the fallen drones, because there were many of them, and they're expensive. And, if you fly over the volcano, over the crater, and the best case scenario is that it will come back molten like this. So what should you do not to end up like this? If you want to fly your drone over a crater when we're there in March or any other time when you're close to the volcano, remember not to fly over the crater. You can fly over the lava, but not over the crater. Because the lava, even if it's flowing, if you have a flow of lava, it is warm, it is hot, but only to about 1 meter above it. Some of the pictures that you could have seen were taken close to the lava, maybe a meter from it, and temperatures were 150 to 200, so warm, but 1.5 meters away was not that hot. However, the temperature above the crater itself can reach even thousands of Celsius degrees, and simply it is too hot for the drones. So remember that. And there is a funny situation actually related to this. Back in 2021, when I was in Iceland, I didn't have a drone there, but I really wanted to have the aerial pictures, so I rented the drone in Reykjavik. It was really expensive. So I flew over the volcano, then I changed the battery, and this was the picture taken 3 seconds before my control controller came up with the notice, signal lost. And now just imagine I was just flying over the crater and suddenly there is a notion I'm going to land. And it's not my drone, it's the drone that I rented for 4,000 euros in Reykjavik. So there was only one thing left for me to do, and that was that I prayed. I was almost certain when I lost the signal that it had fallen into the crater, and I was worried, what shall I tell my wife at home? I lost the rented drone, 4,000 euros, we have to pay it. However, about 3 kilometers away from me, on the other side of the lava field, there were 2 or 3 men who were guarding the area, wearing reflective vests. And some time after, I really started worrying about how shall I break it to my wife. They actually came over the horizon and they were carrying a drone. And they asked me in a broken English, "Isn't it yours?" And I actually replied in Slovak. I didn't know how it was possible, but for whatever reason, I don't know how, I don't know why, the drone flew over the lava field and landed about 1 meter away from them. And there were only 4 people, them three, and myself, in an area about the size of Košice. And apparently my prayers were heard and the drone landed next to them. And because they knew or they saw over the lava field that there was some desperate person just, crying, not panicking, they realized it might be the person who has lost the drone. So they brought it over to me. And I have to say that I had never been happier. However, it's not certain that you will be so lucky as well. So if you ever fly over the crater or over the volcanoes, think about it. Because it's not only about the danger of melting your drone, but the crater actually is disturbing the electromagnetic field, so you might really lose it. So if you want to avoid a heart attack, do not fly over the crater of a volcano. Okay, so this was the first element that I wanted to mention. The second element is water or ice. Iceland is called the country of fire and ice, but I would say that it's the country or the land of fire, water, and ice. So the second element that I've chosen for this workshop is water. And here I would again like to ask the technician to play the video, maybe turn the volume down a little bit. And these are, the footage is about 90% of it was taken in Iceland, but there is also some footage from Norway for illustration purposes. So this is water.
Raz, dva, raz, dva. Počujeme sa výborne. No,
Hope you
čiže,
can hear me.
ako som vravel,
So,
90% videí bolo z
as
Islandu,
I've
okrem tých
mentioned,
najšpecatejších
about
hôr, samozrejme, tie boli z
90% of the
Norska.
footage were
Ale
from
čo som tým videom
Iceland,
chcel
except
povedať?
for the peaks.
Island
These were
je
from
viac
Norway.
krajinou
But
vody
I wanted to
ako,
say
ako
that
ohňa.
Iceland is more
Pretože,
a land of
jasné,
water
tie
than the
sopky
land of
vybuchujú, ako
fire.
sme
Because
hovorili,
even
ale
though you do
nevybuchujú
have
každý deň, vybuchujú
volcanoes
dvakrát
erupting,
ročne.
they do not
A
erupt
toho ľadu
every
a tej
day.
vody tam máme
But
fakt veľa.
when it comes
A
to
je tam
water and
stále.
ice, there is an
Preto,
abundance of it in Iceland, and it
preskočím jeden
stays
slide,
there.
preto
And
sú
that's why
voda a ľadovce pre
water and
Island veľmi
ice and
špecifickým
water and
elementom.
glaciers are very
Asi najznámejší z
specific
nich, z
elements
tých ľadovcov, o
for
ktorých
Iceland.
hovorím, je ľadovec
Perhaps the
Vatnajökull. On
most
je zároveň najväčším
or best
ľadovcom
known
v
is
Európe.
Glacier Vatnajökull,
Tu vám ukážem,
which is
ako
the
vyzerá.
largest or the
Takto
biggest
vyzerá jeden
glacier
z
in
jeho
Europe.
ľadovcových splazov,
And this is
takzvaných.
one of
Ten
the
ľadovcový
so-called
splaz sa
glacier
volá
slides. Now,
Svinjafellsjökull.
this
Pracovný
glacier,
názov
but this
toho ľadovca je
particular
svinia, keď tam
glacier
chodíme,
slide is
pretože samozrejme vyplýva to z názvu.
Svinjalesjökull.
Ale ten ľadovec je naozaj
We
krásny.
call
Na
it
tom ľadovci sa
Svinja.
točili napríklad
And
doznáme
it's
filmy, ako napríklad
beautiful.
Interstellar, niektorí
This
ho
is
možno
where
poznáte.
Interstellar was shot, or some other
Dá sa
famous
na ten
movie.
ľadovec aj ísť, nie je
And
to
you
úplne
can walk
bezpečné, ale je to
on
krásny
or
zážitok,
go
ako
to
si ukážeme na
go
tých
on
ďalších
top of this
slajdoch.
glacier. It's not completely
Väčšinu
safe,
tých
but it's
ľadovcov na
beautiful.
Islande tvorí práve
Now,
on, práve ten Vatnajökull, o ktorom som hovoril.
Vatnajökull is
A má veľa tých
basically
ľadovcových
forms
splazov, ku
the
ktorým
biggest
sa dá
part
dostať.
of glaciers in
V
Iceland,
zime,
and it has a lot of
ako je napríklad
glacier
teraz marec,
slides.
sa chodí na Island hlavne kvôli ľadu.
In the winter, and for example, even
Turisti
now in March,
si bookujú tých
tourists
miestnych
usually come
guideov,
to
ktorí ich vodia po tých
Iceland mainly
ľadovcoch.
to go on the
V
glaciers. They book a
2019
local guide
2020
that
som
guide
sa
them
snažil
or
ísť po tých ľadovcoch
along
aj
the
sám.
glaciers. Back in 2019,
Vyskúšať to low costovo bez toho
I
guida, ale
tried going
neoplatí sa to,
on my
pretože
own,
fakt
so
došiel
I
som
opted
len
for a low cost
niekoľko
version,
stoviek metrov
but
od
it wasn't
začiatku
worth it.
ľadovca a
I
mal
basically
som
just
sa tam viac
went
ako
some
pri sopke,
hundreds of
pretože
meters
tých dier, tých
on top
morén
of the
ľadovcových,
glacier,
ktoré
and
úplne boli strašne veľké, bolo veľmi
I was
veľa
more afraid
a ani neviete
with
ako a sa tam
than
stratíte,
when I
málo kto ich
approached
nájde.
the
A fakt, keď som si tak pozeral
volcanoes,
štatistiky,
because it's
tak
very
každý
easy
rok
to get
niekoľko
lost there,
turistov,
and no one
takýchto
will ever find
odvážnych,
you. And there are
sa jednoducho v tom
statistics
ľadovci
actually that
stratí.
say
A
that every
ich
year
nikto nikdy nenájde,
there are
pretože
tens
išli na
of
vlastnú kosť. To znamená,
tourists
ak sa niekedy
who walk
vydáte
or go
na
by themselves
ľadovce
and
na
they get lost.
Islande, nikdy to
So
nerobte
if
na
you ever
vlastnú
go
kosť.
to
Vždy
glaciers
treba ísť s
or
nejakým
when you're in Iceland,
skúseným
never do it
vodcom.
on your own.
U nás je to
Always
horský vodca, tam
have
je to ľadovcový
a
vodca,
glacier
pretože bez
guide
toho sa to naozaj
taking
neoplatí.
care of you. Always
Čo sa
book
týka
one because it's not
ľadovcov,
worth it.
najväčším lákadlom
Now,
ani
as
nie je
for
takéto chodenie po
glaciers,
ľadovci, je to síce super zážitok,
the
ísť tam
biggest
s tými
attraction is
mačkami a
not
podobne, s
walking
cepínmi,
atop
ale najväčším zážitkom sú
glacier,
práve
but
ľadovcové jaskyne.
rather going
A tie
into a
ľadovcové
glacier
jaskyne, oni
cave.
existujú
Now,
len v
glacier
zime a
caves
počas
only
skorej jari, to
exist
znamená, že teraz je
in
ešte celkom
winter
dobré
and
obdobie
early
na
in
ne,
the spring,
keď ich
so
chce
this is a
človek
good
pozrieť.
time to
A
go there
vznikajú
and see
celkom
them still.
zaujímavým spôsobom tie
And
jaskyne.
they formed in a
Počas
very
letných
interesting
mesiacov,
way.
keď sa
During
na
the
Islande
summer
trochu
months,
oteplí, keď je tam
when
tých
the weather gets a
15-20
bit
stupňov, tak tie
warmer,
ľadovce
when
sa
it's
pomaly
15 or
topia
20
a
degrees
vznikajú
centigrade,
ľadovcové rieky
the glaciers
na
melt.
vrchole toho
And on
ľadovca
top
a
of the
tie rieky, oni si
glacier, we have
prebiehajú
the
cestu
glacier
krížom cez ten ľadovec.
rivers
Oni
that
stekajú hlboko a
basically
vytekajú
flow
úplne pri tých
through
lagúnach,
the
pri
glacier
pobreží. A
from the
teraz, keď
top
sa zase
all the way
ochladí
down to
na
the
jeseň
lagoons
alebo v zime,
by the
tak
coastline.
ten
And then
prietok tých riek
when the
klesá,
weather
pretože je zima, ono
becomes
to zamrzá
colder again,
a to, čo po tých
the
ľadovcových riekach
riverbeds
ostane, je
actually
toto.
freeze
Tá
over. And
ľadovcová
this is
jaskyňa. Pretože
what
voda
remains
zmizne,
a
alebo je respektíve
glacier
len veľmi
cave.
nízka tá hladina, ako
Because
vidíte
the
dole,
water either
a
disappears
všetko naokolo
completely or
zamrzne a
the
vznikne
level
nová
is very
ľadovcová
low.
jaskyňa. To znamená,
So the
že
glacier
ak chcete
caves
ísť na Island s
are
ľadovcovými
formed.
jaskyňami
So if you
a
want to
nájdete
travel
si
to
na
Iceland
Google,
to
kde
see
je
glacier
ľadovcová
cave,
jaskyňa, je to blbosť.
if you
Pretože tá ľadovcová jaskyňa,
look
ktorá
at the
minulý rok na Islande
Look
bola,
on
už tam
Google,
tento rok nie je.
where
Dosť
is a glacier
pravdepodobne.
cave,
Pretože každý rok
it's
tí
useless information
ľadovcoví
because it might
vodcovia
have been there the last year,
stále okolo
but it's
novembra
very
idú na
likely
ten
not there
ľadovec,
anymore.
zoberú sa dvaja, traja
Um,
chlapí,
the glacier
baví ich to jedno,
guides
idú tam a
usually in
hľadajú nové
November
ľadovcové jaskyne, ktoré vznikli
go on the
vlastne
glacier
po tom
and they
predošlom
are
období, po tom
looking
predošlom lete.
for the
A keď
new
ich
glacier
objavia, oni si
caves
ich zaznačia do GPS-ky
after
a
the
potom tam vodia turistov do tých jaskýň. Takže
summers, and
nenechajte
then
sa
they took the GPS
nalákať nejakými
coordinates
blogmi, ktoré vám
and
budú
then
tvrdiť, že
guide
toto je
the
ľadovcová jaskyňa, choď
tourists
tam aj bez toho
there.
guida,
So
neboj sa,
don't
toto není dobré.
trust,
minulý rok sa
some
stalo jedno
information
dosť veľké
on
nešťastie.
or
Stratilo sa
outdated
veľa turistov, ktorí
information on
takto
Google
sa
because it
snažili
might be
hľadať
dangerous.
latinské
Last year,
jaskyne, ktoré
actually,
proste
quite a
prikryli,
few
pretože bolo príliš
tourists
teplo na to, aby tam šli. Čiže
were
nesmú
lost
prejsť nikdy,
because of
ale
that,
s tým sprievodcom
because
je to
they had
veľmi krásny
the
zážitok,
incorrect
takto sa
information.
prejsť po tej
If you
ľadovcovej
have a
jaskyni, lebo
guide, a
je to niečo
well
výnimočné, čo
tried
v
and tested
podstate
and
v inej krajine
trustworthy
nejako ešte sa
guide,
nemá
it's
obdobie.
really a beautiful experience if you go into a glacier
A
cave.
pre tých,
And
ktorí
it's
nie sú až
an
takí
adventure
dobrodruhovia,
that you
ktorí sa
cannot
možno
really find
obávajú
anywhere else.
dať si na nohy
And for
mačky,
those of
cepíny a
you
všetku tú
who
výbavu,
maybe are
je tu
not
ďalšia
that
možnosť,
adventurous,
ako
there is
ľadovce
another
na Islande
option
vidieť. Na juhu krajiny,
that you can use to
pri tom
see
ľadovci
glaciers
Vatnajökull,
in
sa nachádza tzv.
Iceland.
ľadovcová
Next to
lagúna. Volá sa
Vatnajökull,
Jökull
there
Sárlón.
is
Hej, zase
Jökull
pracuje názov jogurt,
Sarlón.
pretože
Uh,
jogurt.
we
A
call it
podobne,
yogurt
tie
because it
islandské názvy sú
sounds
strašne
similar,
komplikované,
and
niekedy to
that's a
musíme
glacier
vydávať takéto
lagoon.
podnázvy, pretože
Sometimes
by sme to
the
nedali.
Icelandic,
A tá
the names
ľadovcová
in Icelandic
lagúna,
are quite
ona sa nachádza
complicated,
hneď pri
so we have
ceste. Je
their
to zaujímavé,
nicknames
keď
for
idete
them.
tým
Now,
juhom,
this lagoon
tak máte
is
tam tú hlavnú
located
cestu
close
číslo
to
1 a
the main
zastanete vedľa
road,
cesty,
number
tam je
one,
velikánske parkovisko,
and you can park
vystúpite
at the
a ste v
enormous
podstate hneď pri
parking lot,
ľadovcoch, vidíte
and
takéto
you're next to a
krásne
glacier,
obrazy.
and this is what you can see.
A zaujímavé
It's
je, že
breathtaking
takéto kusy ľadu,
scenery.
ktoré
And
v
what's interesting
podstate
is
sa odlámajú z toho veľkého
pieces of
ľadovca,
ice
tak
such
oni
as
sa
this
dostanú do
one
tej lagúny
that break
ľadovcovej, tá
off
ich vypluje do
the
mora
main
a more
glacier,
ich zase
get
vráti
into
späť
the
na pláž.
glacier
A tí
water.
Islandiania tú
It,
pláž volajú
spills
diamantová
them, they're
pláž,
being
pretože sa na nej
spilled
nachádzajú fakt
in the
tisíce
sea, and the
takýchto
sea
ľadových
brings them
kusov,
back.
takýchto kusov toho
And they
ľadovca.
form a beach
Konkrétne
that is
toto
called the Diamond
je fotka jedného
Beach
z nich.
because
Ten
you
kus
have
mal
pieces of
niečo vyše
glacier
2 metre. Ono sa to
covering
nezdá na
the
tej fotke,
beach.
ale bolo to fakt veľké.
This is one of them.
Pripomínalo mi
This was
to
actually more
dosť
than
veľryby,
2
jasné, preto som to fotil.
uh,
Ale tá pláž je
meters
práve špecifická tým, že je to na pláži,
wide.
tam
And
vyplavený
it
ten kus
reminded
ľadu
me
a
of
veľmi
a
pekne sa to
tail
dá
of a
fotiť,
whale.
natáčať
That's
a je
why I
to
took a picture, but
zaujímavá
it's
vec,
really
pretože
a very beautiful and very scenic scenery.
topia. Áno, ale
Sorry?
každý deň sú tam
Yes,
iné,
they do
pretože
melt.
ono tam vyšplechne
Unfortunately,
kopu
what is
toho
not
ľadu za
saying
jeden deň
said into the
a
microphone cannot
oni
be
sa stopia
interpreted.
povedzme do ďalšieho
So
dňa,
yeah,
ale
these
ono to
pieces
nemusí ale
basically
špliehať
melt
veľa
a
tú
little
pláž,
bit
takže to zaujímavé je aj
until the
tam byť
next
a
day,
sledovať to,
but
ako v
it's
tom mori to pláve.
interesting to even
Na tej pláži
observe
dokonca
it
býva veľa
over the
tuleňov,
course
ktorí
of
okolo
days,
tých ľadovcov tam
how
sa
the pieces of
hrajú a
ice
majú
are
tam z toho show
floating
a teraz
on
tam
top
tie
of
ľadovce
the
vyplúvajú to na
water
tú pláž a
surface,
oni si
and
pomedzi toho
there's
sa hrajú.
quite a lot of
Je to super
seals
miesto. Je to
there
dosť komerčné, samozrejme,
playing
strašne
with
veľa ľudí
it,
tam
so it's a
býva.
great place.
Aj z
Obviously,
tých turistov s
it is
statívmi a tabletmi a
quite a
točím, ale
popular tourist
napriek tomu
attraction,
perfektné
so
miesto,
you
ktoré
would
sa
have a
oplatí
lot of
vidieť,
tourists usually
keď na
there,
to
many
Islande ste.
Asians, for example.
Toto je
It's
ďalšia fotka,
definitely
ktorá
worth
je z tej
seeing if you
oblasti,
go to Iceland.
z tej
Another
ľadovcovej
picture
lagúny Jökull
taken
Sárlón. Tiež tam býva strašne veľa
at
vtáctva
this
spolu s
place
tými
is this
tuleňmi,
one.
takže ak
Usually,
nemá
there's
niekto
also
rád
a lot of,
fotku alebo
apart
video
from
tej
seals, there's
divokej
a lot of
prírody, čo sa
birds
týka
there.
zvierat,
So
tak
if you
to je fakt
like
výborné miesto, či už na
wildlife
nejaké
photos, this
natáčanie
is a
alebo
great
fotenie,
spot
pretože
for you
tam je toho veľa.
where to settle and
A okrem
either
tých ľadovcov na
shoot
Islande
or
je
take
aj
pictures. Another
naozaj
thing that
veľa
is in abundance
rôznych
in
jazier,
Iceland
rôznych
are the
riečok, ktoré
lakes
sa dajú
and
točiť, ktoré
rivers
sa dajú fotiť
or
spolu s
streams
nejakými
that you
zaujímavými
can
horami.
take a picture of,
Toto je fotka,
maybe
ktorá
against the
ukazuje
background of some
nielen jedno z
mountains.
tých malých
And this
jazierok,
is
ale
one
samozrejme
such
aj počasie,
picture,
ktoré na
which
Islande
not
býva,
only
pretože ja
shows a
hovorím vám, že
small lake,
Island
but
nemá počasie, Island
uh,
má len trailery na
weather,
počasie.
which is
To sú
very
také
interesting. I like to say that
trojminútové epizódy, kedy 3
there's no
minúty
weather
prší, 3 minúty
in
svieti slnko,
Iceland, but
5
there are
minút
only
sneží,
weather
3 minúty
trailers
fúka, už
in
ste
Iceland
suchí,
because
hej. A potom
every
zase 3
weather just
minúty
lasts
prší
for a
a ide
couple
to
of
takto
minutes.
dookola, čiže
So you
trailerové
have
počasie. Ale vďaka
sun,
tomu práve
you
vznikajú
have
takéto
sunshine,
perfektné
then
scény, pretože
rain, then
keď vám
wind,
prichádza a odchádza ten
and
front, tak vtedy je to
this is
najkrajšie na
this
fotenie a na
is
natáčanie,
what
pretože vtedy sa
makes
vám tam ukáže
up
dúha,
for
začne
a
vám svietiť svetlo tých
spectacular
kvapiek a
setting for
je to
your
úplne celé
pictures
nádherné
because you can
a
capture
krásne.
rainbow,
Okrem tých
drops of
jazierok na tom
water,
Islande
movements of
sa
grass,
nachádza
and so
veľa takých
further and so
pekných
forth.
pobreží.
There are also
Teraz keď
beautiful
pôjdeme v tom Marci na ten
spots
Island,
along the
niektorí z vás, tak
coastline, and
toto je
this is one
miesto,
of
na
the
ktoré
places
pôjdeme
we
tiež natáčať,
will
pretože je to naozaj
visit
blízko Reykjaviku, takže
in
pol hodinka
March.
autom.
It's
A
about half
fakt je
an
to
hour's
úplne nádherné
driving from
pobrežie,
Reykjavik,
kde bývajú
with
strašne silné
usually
vlny,
with huge
skoro stále,
waves.
pretože je to na
It's
juhu a
located
od
in the
juhu
south, and this is
tie
where
vlny
the
idú
sea is coming from.
na tom Islande.
So usually the waves are
No a
really
v
very
okrozemí
high,
sa nachádza
but
aj veľa
also
takých
You have an abundance of such locations, location like this one in the inland part of Iceland. And this basically documents the melting of the glaciers because what you can see at the back, these are glacier rivers. Basically, all the water, all the not salty water on Iceland originates from the glaciers. And it's beautiful if you can take a picture of it, for example, the aerial photo. This is what you can end up with because the rivers intertwine and they're located close to each other, and it's really beautiful. If you want to take a beautiful and high quality picture in or video in Iceland, if you want to show that it really is the land of fire and ice and water, you have to be ready. You need to you need to have a good equipment. What else do you need to have? What else? Unfortunately, again, we do not hear the we do not hear the responses. But rubber boots is your key to success because wherever you go in Iceland, you will stand in water, even very often reaching up to your knees, because wherever you go, there is bound to be a glacier river that would be soaked in all the surrounding areas. And if you walk, if you trot away from a bitumen road, which is bound to happen, you would hear the squishy sound. And if you do not have the good rubber boots, you've lost. When I first went to Iceland, I actually knew I had to have rubber boots. From my friend actually told me, but I wore it in, or I left it in the trunk of my car, and I just wore sneakers. And they didn't last for long. They lasted for 12 minutes, and they were completely soaked, and they never got dried because it was wet everywhere. If you really want to, if you're serious about going to take pictures or shoot some footage, if you want to go near some lake or water course or waterfall, rubber boots is a must. This is a key to finding a good composition for a good shot. I usually tell my clients that rubber boots is more expensive than a tripod in Iceland because you can replace tripod with anything, but without the rubber boots, you're not going to last. And another thing that you will need when you are shooting in Iceland are the cloths to wipe your lens. Because if it's not raining, if you do not have the 3-minute trailer for rain, then there's bound to be some water drops from a waterfall, as you could have seen in my pictures. And you can have a raincoat, the waterproof jackets, or Gore-Tex trousers. It doesn't matter because if you're next to the waterfall, if you're standing next to the waterfall, you're like in a washing machine, and the water gets through everything. And I don't know how, but you're always wet. You're always soaked in water. And just imagine standing there with your equipment, with a camera, and it's not only you that are getting soaked, but also the equipment. And if you want to shoot a video, you might have 3, 4, 5 second sequences, and you will suddenly become a toreador. You have your you would have your finger on the button, and you will wipe your lens, and then after 5 seconds uh, you'll just do, and it's lost unless it's dry, unless the lens is dry. So if you go to Iceland, you don't have to have the high profile clothes, but just something that you, for example, use for cleaning your glasses. It's very important, and you need to have many of them because one doesn't last very long. It always gets soaked. So rubber boots and wiping cloths. So far, we have been talking about the elements in Iceland that anyone can shoot if they come to Iceland, because the places that I've shown you are located along one beautiful route, the only one. beautiful route, asphalt or bitumen roads leading across Iceland. Number one, it's the road number one. It runs along the most attractive locations, such as the beach Reynisfjara, the one that we see at the picture now. All these locations are spectacular, but usually they're crowded. For example, this is Skogafoss waterfall, the most beautiful, the best known in Iceland. It's huge, it's beautiful. But the reality is that when you come to this waterfall, this is what you will see. There is a huge parking lot located next to this waterfall, and there are dozens of buses, usually bringing Asians, tourists from Asia, stopping there. And if you want to really take in the beauty of, you know, beautiful nature in Iceland, and you have four buses full of Japanese or Asian tourists. They stand behind you, they start their cameras, and you move along because you're suddenly a part of a crowd. And that's why I have two tips for you how you can really enjoy the nature in Iceland. If you ever go to Iceland, do not choose the travel agency that has the bus tours and offers you the tour of Iceland, because usually you will be on a bus full of people being there at the time which is most popular, and you are just going to be one of the 500 tourists there at this location. I am sort of semi-introverted person, but I believe that we can all enjoy nature better if we are not a part of a crowd of 500 people. And the second tip is, or second advice, if you ever go to these popular attractions such as this Skogafoss waterfall, do not go there at 10, 11 in the morning or at the lunchtime, but be there at the sunset or sunrise. Get up early, go there when the sun rises, and there might be some two or three more people like you. The atmosphere is going to be calmer, the colors are going to be nicer, and your experience would be completely different, out of this world. Another thing that was attracting me in Iceland after all my visits is the inland part of the island, because this famous road number one not only takes you to these locations, but basically you can get off this road and you can go inwards. And this is what attracted me. I wanted to find a place that no one has ever seen or taken picture of. And that's why I started planning trips outside of this typical popular tourist spots or attractions located along the road number one. And I really found beautiful locations where you can take beautiful picture either with your camera or with a drone, because it was only when I went inland that I discovered what Iceland is really for me now. Um, I spent about 2 years just basically going and navigating the same spot along the road number one. But it was almost like a natural Disneyland, a place which is beautiful, but which is already quite heavily populated with infrastructure, and you do not have the feeling and the sense of wilderness, of being in the wilderness there. However, if you ever come to a spot where you've never met anyone and you've never seen a picture of, these are the moments when you feel like an explorer, when you feel like you're at a spot where only maybe some ancient Icelanders had seen before you. And this is what attracts me and has been attracting me in Iceland since 2021, because I really discovered beautiful spots like that inland. And I believe there are still spots that have not yet been found. Now, the question is why? do we not have that many tourists in the inland areas? Well, partly the answer might be that there's only one well-built road, uh, road number one, which do not take you to these inward located areas. But basically, this area that you can see delineated is the area where there are no official roads leading to this part. Uh, no roads whatsoever, let alone the bitumen road. So these are the roads that you have to navigate if you want to go there. And just try and imagine what type of car you need for that and how challenging it is if you need to walk in the mountains. I have to say that this was my expectation. In reality, it's not that difficult to go there, but you need the right car, the right vehicle. You need something like this. Because if you abandon the standard road number one, you get to the type of road that I've shown you, but sometimes you have to go across the river. And sometimes the water is quite deep. Sometimes it reaches up to your windows, for example, side windows. Uh, Sometimes it makes you think about your life and up till this point, and you just think whether this is not the end of your life. And I have to say that I've seen several people like this that simply didn't have the right car and they basically drowned their car. This guy is actually quite happy because his car is still standing on its wheels. However, after all this, when I've seen all this, in 2023, I decided to take my wife with me to these places, and I hadn't told her prior to our trip what it actually encompasses. So we came to Iceland, we rented this car, and it was an amazing experience because there was a Latvian man that we rented it from, and the car looks amazing from the outside, but from the inside it was really polluted, worn down, and this Latvian guy told us with very broken English, these cables that you can see coming out of the dashboard must not be get in the touch with water because the car die and you might die as well. So I thought, okay, right, okay. It was interesting. We really got to beautiful places. My wife experienced spending a week in a car with two other men because we also had my friend with us and he snored every night. But it was beautiful. It was a great experience. We discovered places that had never been photographed before, and it was all worth it. But we really needed this huge car. So if you want to experience Iceland, the true nature of Iceland, it's definitely advisable to start, with the more scenic route on the coast, on along the coastline. But if you go again and again, then it's worth having a really good car that can really get in the water, has huge wheels, and you can survive in it. So if you really want to be an explorer, like from a Spielberg film, go and explore the inland part of Iceland. Now, these are the areas where you can only go from June till September because these areas are still covered with in snow, so you can only go there in the summer. However, if you ever go to Iceland between June and September, the inland part is really worth seeing. And this brings us to another element of Iceland. And we have a question. Unfortunately, the question is not audible. There are so-called F-roads. It's not that you basically, divert from the regular road where you want. But basically, these F-roads are marked on some of the maps of Iceland. And these are the roads that lead somewhere. You don't know where, but you can get somewhere if you travel along this road. So there are maps there. Yes, there is also a Czech application, Czech mobile app, Mappy.cz, where you can actually see the roads, and this is what I've used. So these F-roads, okay, obviously some of the locations or most of the locations that go along in inland looks like moon landscape, and it's forbidden to drive on top of moss or living organisms, living nature. But the F roads are roads that are navigable, and they are only used by the natives, not by the tourists. But it's quite an experience to use them because these are the roads that used to be um, used by the native Icelanders if they wanted to go from south to north. It's like ancient roads that were used by ancient Icelanders, but you cannot drive on top of the fauna or flora. The roads were built in the spots where there are no active volcanoes. The active volcanoes are only located in the south, north, southeast, northwest, but along the F roads, you should be safe. It might be a bit complicated because there might be rivers, but it's quite fun, I have to say. Right. Okay, the next element that we must not omit when we talk about Iceland is the Northern Lights. The Northern Lights is a phenomenon that everyone would like to see at least once in their lives. Majority of people actually think that they will pay for their plane tickets to Iceland, open their door at night, and they will see the Northern Lights. But this is not how it works. The Northern Lights is not something that you can often see. It's quite rare even in Iceland, but let me give you a couple of tips if you want to see the Northern Lights or observe the Northern Lights when you're in Iceland. Let me tell you when and how you can observe it, because this is quite important. You don't see it every night when you just open the window or open the door. So first and foremost, where you can see the Northern Lights or aurora, as it's called. Obviously, you can see it in the north, and as you can see the green circle, these are the locations where the Northern Lights are visible. You can see where Iceland is. It also covers part of Greenland, Norway, Canada, Russia, and so further and so forth. So Iceland is located directly in the location where the Northern Lights can be seen. So it's a perfect location for that. Question number 2, when can I see the Northern Light? Where can I take picture of it? It is during the aurora season, which lasts from September till April. And that's because it has to be dark if you want to see the Northern Lights. And as you know, the northern parts have polar day or a polar night. And during a polar day, when you have a light throughout like 24 hours a day, you cannot obviously, logically observe the northern lights. But since mid-September to mid-April, you can observe it. Actually, September, October, and March are ideal month if you want to travel to Iceland to see Northern Lights and something else, because the division between the daytime and nighttime is quite similar to our areas, Slovakia. So it's quite good also from our point of view. So if you want to see something, to see the nature, but also the northern light in September, October, and March are the months that you want to aim for. And if we want to talk about the time, not just the season, but the time, the best time to observe the northern lights is from 8 p.m. till 11 p.m. This is usually the time when it's the strongest, the northern lights are the strongest, and then it stops. I don't know why, but it gets much weaker. So if you want to observe the northern lights, September to April, from 8 p.m. till 11 p.m. That's your best option. I remember the first time when I saw the northern lights, we were actually sleeping outside in a desert-like areas, and then I saw a stripe over the horizon, just like this is actually taken by a mobile phone. And I was thinking, is it a cloud or what is it? Is it a northern light? And, I actually took a picture of it, and suddenly I saw through the screen that the stripe was green. So I woke up everyone and they said, "Where is it? I don't see anything." And really, if the northern lights are weak, if the activity, if the electric activity or the particle activities is weak, it's much more difficult to see it with your eyes, and it's not as green as when you take a picture of it. But when the northern light is strong, if the sun actually sends loads of particles towards the Earth surface, then you really see dancing northern light that even change the color, and it's a beautiful experience. The northern light does not occur every night, but when you see it, you would have almost a psychedelic experience. It's beautiful. And again, we have a question that we do not hear. When you shoot the northern light, the exposure time is longer, the sensitivity is higher, so the lens can record more light than a human eye. That's why it is more visible. It's similar to shooting stars at night. I'm sure you've already seen the pictures of the Milky Way where you can really see it beautifully displayed, which is not what you can see with your naked eye. Simply the lens of the camera sees it differently. And the principle is the same with the northern light. The camera can sense um, the color of the northern lights. If it's green, then it's better equipped to perceive it or to see it. It's more sensitive to light, the lens of the camera, than our eye, than the human eye. And this is also the reason why many people are actually disappointed when they see the northern lights for the first time, because they expect something different. They just and what they see is basically, for example, a gray cloud. I don't know. And again, we didn't hear the response from the audience. We are sorry, it cannot be interpreted. Yeah, I think it would require some scientific debate. Maybe someone will explain it to me sooner or later if I meet a scientist, but I'm not a scientist. I'm just an observer coming to the spot, admiring what I see, and very often I don't ask questions. People usually laugh because when I shoot a flower, many people try to find out what is the Latin name of this of the flower. For me, it's a flower, just like something is a tree or a bush. I'm fine with just this division. So I don't know why it's green. I've never actually explored this. Paradoxically, sometimes the northern lights can be so strong that you can even see it through the full moon when the light is really strong. So these pictures have actually been taken during the full moon. night. And you can see the moon actually on the left hand side on the picture at the left, uh, and you could see both. You can see both the moon and the northern lights. And on the right hand side, we have the picture where basically the full moon sheds light on the waterfall, and you can still see the northern lights. But this is when the the activity of the sun is really strong, and this doesn't happen very often. It's usually once a month during the aurora season, and that's why I've said that it's not easy to shoot the northern lights because the activity might be good, but it's very rarely that you have clear skies. So out of 10 nights when you have the aurora lights or the northern lights, 9 would be cloudy. However, there might be a chance that you come to Iceland and 5 nights are uh, clear, the skies is clear, and on 3 nights of the 5 nights, you could see the northern lights. And this is you stand a very good chance here or now in 2025 because there are 12-year cycles of the sun activity, and we are now in the season when the sun activity is at its peak. So if you want to observe the northern lights, the best year is this year and maybe the next year or the year 2027. There is a high likelihood that you can observe northern lights on a clear night. And then we will see the decline in the solar activity after 2027. These pictures were taken last year, and even though we had clear skies and the full moon, we could still see the northern lights because the solar activity was really, really high. And one other picture where you can see both the northern lights and the Milky Way. And one other thing, many of you here are photographers or filmmakers, so how do you shoot the northern lights so that it looks nice? Well, this might be the question that worries some of you. First thing you need if you want to shoot the northern lights is to have a sensitive uh, lens. And this is, for example, so once again, what I do is I usually take or use the higher lens aperture focal number 2.8 or 1.4, which seem to be ideal for setting your camera so that it sees the northern lights. Another thing is the exposure time. The exposure time is also something that we have to think of when we take pictures at night, because when you shoot at night, the camera needs to collect the light for 15 seconds for it to see the stars. In case of the northern lights, I can set it for 3 seconds because the northern light is not static. It basically dances, it moves, so you have different sort of lines as you can see. And if I had too long the exposure time, it would just be one blob on the skies and it wouldn't look like it. So if you shoot northern lights, for those of you who are photographers here, so the exposure time should be about 3 seconds, and the aperture should be as a little as possible, and you stand a chance of having a nice uh, picture. And you need to increase the ISO, the sensitivity of the sensor. If you want to shoot it as a video, then you can basically shoot it. But majority of videos with northern lights are not videos as such, but they are more the time-lapse features. So the camera basically takes sequential shots, and you have 60 shots per 1 second of the video. So you have to take 600 pictures if you want a 10-second video. So the camera does it for you and prepares the time lapse, and it's usually it looks usually much better than if you really want to shoot a video. I don't have an example here, but this is the way to do it if you want to have a nice video to use the time lapse. And now, if I wanted to sum all this up, I would have to say that Iceland might be a wild but beautiful country. I fell in love with it right back in 2019, and I was so taken and intrigued and attracted by this country that I'm coming back every year ever since. And even though it's been 5 years since then, it is never the same and it's never boring. We always find something else and something new. It's not a country of fire and ice, but a land, rather a planet of fire and ice, because wherever you look, you think and you find yourself on a completely different planet. Sometimes it's like a moon if you're standing at the black sand, or you might be at a completely different planet when you're standing next to the waterfall with a lot of greenery around you. So it's a country that is interesting for everyone, for all photographers, all videographers, or all adventurers. And now the question is, do you have any question? Now is the time to ask. Unfortunately, we do not hear the questions, so we cannot interpret them. Okay, the question concerns gas and where do you refuel your car? Well, you have to have your full tank and you do not travel uh, vast distances. So you might be traveling for 7 hours, but you only cover about 100 kilometers because sometimes you have to go across the river and you usually drive quite slowly. So it can be done, but basically after our first experience, we've learned, we knew better. We always had some um, vessel full of fuel to have, the something, to be safe, to be on a safe side, because, otherwise you cannot go. It would be difficult to get out of there. And how about the food? Well, basically, you have to take everything with you. The good thing is that you can reach the inward or inland part by car. And the treks are only about 2 hours long. So your car is your base camp. Everything is in there, and you basically keep on coming back to your car. Again, the question that is not audible. You can, but it's very difficult. Whatever it is. I think the question might have referred to the possibility of traveling across the inward part of Iceland on a bike. That would be really, really difficult. There was a car with the bikes on top of the car. There were two Frenchmen who were trying it. I've never seen them again, so I don't know. I can't really imagine because really, the landscape is very diverse. There are huge stones and mountains and rivers. Maybe they just, cycled a little bit in a smaller part around that base camp. I have a friend who is American who actually biked through the inside part or inside part of the island, but he said that he would never do it again, and he had the entire support team around him. He had 6 bikes to replace the bikes because a bike only lasted for about 60 kilometers. So there was a car that was accompanying him and carrying all stuff for him. So I don't think it is possible. I can't imagine anyone doing it with one bike only. And again, the question is not audible, unfortunately. It is a bit complicated, a bit more complicated because simply the light is quite scarce. In November, you still have about 5 to 6 hours of daylight, but in January and February, it's almost non-existent. The sun never comes up, and you have about 1 hour of sort of dim blue light, but it's not the daylight. So it's not very good if you want to explore the nature. If you want to to see the Northern Lights, that's a great time because there is a great chance that you will see it because the night lasts almost for 24 hours. But if you want to explore the country as well and the nature and the landscape, then definitely during the summer time. And also in winter, south is quite accessible, but if you want to travel around Iceland using the road number one, sometimes it's even not possible to get to the north of the island because the amount of snow is really high and you cannot actually even reach the northern part of the island. So it is beautiful in winter, but not really that beautiful. It has happened once in October that we got stuck because we were basically traveling around Iceland. It was the end of October, and we were up north, close to the Mevarton Lake, and overnight. Uh, we actually lost the car because it was so covered with snow. So much snow fell overnight that we couldn't find our car. And so we had to actually dig in the snow to find our car. And we found it at the end, but when we realized that the road would be also covered with so much snow, then we basically had to wait for a week to go back. The road around Iceland, I mean, you can drive around Iceland in about 4 or 5 days, but this would be rushing. If you really want to see Iceland around, I would at least plan for 10 days so that you can see all the beautiful spots. But if you only want to drive all day and then just, jump out of the car, take a couple of pictures and jump back in, then you can do it in 4 or 5 days. And you always have to wear your rubber boots. I now actually do not only carry with me my rubber boots, but also the inserts for to replace the wet ones because sometime and very often the water actually gets in your rubber boots as well. And you know, um, you have to you have to plan for that as well because sometimes it gets really wet even inside your rubber boots, and which makes a great material for Instagram, I have to say. But rubber boots really is a must. If you only want to travel to Reykjavik and to Skogafoss, obviously you do not need the rubber boots. But if you really want to have a nice footage, then you have to go in water and you need your rubber boots. Unfortunately, another inaudible question. They do sell it, whatever it is, but it's very expensive because obviously they know that you need it. So I usually wear the very lightweight, cheap rubber boots, which are very lightweight. They cost about 25 euros. They are like a fisherman's rubber boots. I think it's a Lemigo, Greenlander, or something. It's some Polish brand. These were the ones that were on the picture. They're very cheap and they last for about 6 expeditions. Usually last me about 6 expeditions. But the biggest problem is where you put it in your luggage because they're big. And so I usually do it that I put everything in the rubber boots, starting from socks with salami, a bottle of alcohol, instant soups, and that actually means that your bottle of alcohol is protected, and you use all the space inside of the rubber boots, and they do not take extra space if you really fill them to the brim. So you're sorted. And yes, the alcohol would be, yeah, we may say it's a bottle with water, but it's the water with, let's say it's disinfectant. Now, two things that I always carry with me to Iceland is salami and alcohol, because meat and alcohol is really very expensive in Iceland. So alcohol, which costs 10 euros here, would cost 110 in Iceland, and you can only buy it in a specialized shop, which you can only find in three places in Iceland. And if you want to buy a lot of alcohol in Iceland, they will take down your notes, and you have to actually agree officially to some preventive therapy. So both in Iceland and in Norway, there is a partial prohibition. The shop is called Vinbudin, but it's not worth visiting it. However, when we went uh, the volcanoes, I actually bought a small half a liter bottle of Jameson, and it cost me about 80 euros. So most expensive alcohol in my life for sure. So salami and alcohol. Again, the question which is not audible. We are sorry, but it cannot be interpreted. Not the helicopter, but a car will come. Probably if you're stuck. So another car, perhaps a bigger car, would come, and I wouldn't want to experience it because you cannot even have an insurance covering it because you're not traveling officially. So they would rescue you. There would be a certain rescue operation, and they would abandon the car and they would let it drown. They would save the person, but all these rescue operations are very, very expensive, but I wouldn't want to be a part of it. However, I would say that about 80% of the F roads leading inwards, the island, uh, do not really pose many dangers. Uh, there might be some rivers that are deep enough for you to basically submerge yourself, but usually it's just very safe. Maybe the water comes up to your knees, but there are no extra dangers. Obviously, it might happen if you're on a hike that you would fall and I don't know, sprain your ankle or broke your ankle, but that's why you never travel alone. What's the situation there with the signal? Well, you have signal coverage everywhere. Sometimes even very strong, even like 5G signal, even in a no-name location. Now, this spot, for example, is about 7 hours away, 7 hours of driving away from the main road, and I had a 5G signal there. I could post the Instagram stories there. I don't know how it is secure. It might be over the satellite. It might be that somewhere there is only an edge internet, but you can have the phone signal almost everywhere. That's very interesting. The coverage is really full and everywhere. I don't know how they do it, but they do. They manage. Icelanders say that all water that's not seawater in Iceland is possible, is drinkable. I usually don't do it, but my friends basically drank glacier water and they were fine. So, the people in Iceland say that the biggest trick played on tourists are having the potable water or drinkable water in plastic bottles because they would charge you 5 euros for that, but they would just fill it in the river behind the corner. So definitely the best thing if you want to start a business in Iceland would be if you have water, beer, and rubber boots. We couldn't hear the question, but arguably it was whether he would like to live there. I maybe would like to live there, but not my wife. My wife disagrees. Iceland is a beautiful country, but if you stay for longer than a month, it becomes a little bit depressive. You have black deserts, and if you drive in your car along or along the road in like moonlight country, um, might be quite depressive. It looks a little bit apocalyptic. So I don't know if I wanted to live there, but perhaps our dreamland where we would like to live with my wife would be Norway. We actually plan to go there. Iceland is beautiful, but it's not a country for everyone because you have half a year of night or darkness, and you have the dark countryside around it might become quite depressive. It might seem quite depressive. And the culture there, the local culture is quite strange. They have quite a morbid culture. I remember a village where there was a school building and there was a painting on it. It was original and it was a black cat with large yellow eyes and basically just having emerging its claws into the bodies of running children. And you look at it and you just think like you just feel like, oh my God, this is not something that we are used to. So it might be quite, it might look quite really apocalyptic. Uh, I've never seen anyone running out or away from the school, so we don't know if it happens. So it might become quite morbid, so that's why we wouldn't want to live there with my wife, but we like to go back there and travel there and bring more people there because it's a great time when you go to Iceland. You spend your time in nature and you don't think about other things like everyday mundane stuff. Do they grow anything? Yes, they do. They actually grow quite a lot of drugs. I believe this is one of the main commodities because not much can be grown there. And I would say that young people in Iceland really use drugs quite a lot. And I don't know, I've never tried it, but when I spoke to the young people in Iceland, uh, they used to say, "Can you see the guy? Can you spot the guy with the red eyes? This is not the beer. It's a different substance." So basically, they use drugs to compensate for something. However, if you want to grow crops there, they have to use greenhouses. So there are no fields just lying around normally. It's quite difficult to grow something there. Another thing is that Iceland doesn't have trees. There used to be forests there, but the Vikings, they say the Vikings completely annihilated them or basically, eliminated them. And that's not much that grows there. So the only crops that grow in Iceland are grown in greenhouses. There might be some strawberries, but everything is basically imported to Iceland. Another question that we cannot hear. It's a good question, but obviously they do not use wood for heating because they do not have trees, but they have thermal springs, so they have geothermal energy that they use for heating. About 80% of Iceland basically has free heating because they do not have to worry about gas or anything. They use geothermal energy to heat their houses. In Grindavik, next to Reykjavik, there is a number of geothermal power plants that produce heat from the geothermal gases or basically geothermal springs in the ground. So this is one of the positives of living in Iceland. And obviously you have warm springs, geothermal springs that you can bath in, but you have to be careful because not every spring that you can see the steam coming out of is good for bathing because some of them are 80 Celsius degrees hot, so you would boil rather than take a bath. And last year I was writing a guide for Iceland, and I had a map there, and I actually counted the number of natural lakes where you can take a dip in, and I found 68 of them. But I wouldn't just, jump in any random lake that the steam is coming out of because, it might be my last dip, basically. Again, the question that is not audible. Nothing lived there. So this might have been the question concerning fauna. Obviously, there are animals in Iceland, but might be the polar foxes or reindeers and sheep and horses. But basically, inland in the inland parts, there might be some some polar fox. But I don't think there is like any dangerous species there. It might happen sometimes that, for example, a polar bear uh, flows in from Greenland on the ice along the sea, and I wanted to explore the north of Iceland, feeling as an explorer. And suddenly I found out that there were footsteps, and it wasn't only mine footsteps on the snow, and they were huge. They looked like a bear. They're the footsteps of the bear, and I actually logged into the official website, and there was a news that there was a polar bear uh, sighting in Husavik, which was about a kilometer away from where I was. So I didn't see the bear, but I saw its footsteps. I was lucky not to have the first-hand encounter. It would have made a funny news if there was a news that there have been human traces found next to the footsteps of, or the traces of the bears, and they disappear. Yes, well, yes, this has never happened, but usually they basically annihilate the bear. They shoot them dead usually. Is the ocean too cold, or can you basically surf wearing a neoprene for a short time? I think it's possible. There are people surfing there, but I don't think it's very pleasant because the water temperature would be 15 to maybe 18 degrees Celsius in the summer. So the water that's used for bathing is in the thermal springs, geothermal springs. Yeah, this is what we do. Uh, Last week we got back from Saudi Arabia, where there were 35 degrees Celsius, and next week we'll go to Iceland. So you need to switch between the places. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for having me and bearing with me for almost 2 hours. And if you have any further questions, please feel free to email me, let me know, ask the questions. And if you ever go to Iceland, feel free to write to me and ask me when shall I go there, what shall I take with me. In case you didn't know, philithrebenda.com, or you can search for my profiles on the social media, and you will find my contact details. Once again, thank you very much for your attention, and I'm looking forward to meeting some of you in Iceland, because the girls said that, among you, there are some that will go there. So thank you for your attention.